The love I have for my wife is undeniable, so when she left for a business trip, the kids and I decided to do something special, surprise her by flying out to see her. But as I would soon learn, not all surprises bring joy to everyone involved. The idea struck me out of nowhere one morning during breakfast. Lily was absent-mindedly stirring her cereal, barely taking a bite, while Jake was already lost in the game on his phone, half engaged with reality. Emily had been gone for 3 days, and with 4 more to go, a full week apart felt unbearable. That's when it hit me. What if we went to see Mom? I said, setting down my coffee. Lily's eyes widened in excitement. You mean, just show up? Yeah. We could book flights today and be there by tonight. Imagine her face. Jake, who hardly looked up from his phone for anything, actually lifted his gaze. That'd be kind of cool. Coming from a 13-year-old, that was practically a declaration of excitement. That was all the encouragement I needed. Within hours, our bags were packed, tickets secured, and a charged excitement filled the air. I could already see it. Emily opening the hotel door, her eyes widening in shock before pulling us all into a warm embrace, maybe even with tears. It had been so long since we'd had a moment like that. Yet, a nagging feeling lingered. Emily hadn't answered when I called that morning. Not entirely unusual, I told myself. She was busy. I sent her a text instead. Me, hey, hope work's going okay. Just wanted to hear your voice. No response. An hour later, I tried again. Me, kids miss you. Call when you can. Still nothing. Strange, but I brushed it off. Work trips could be chaotic. We landed in Chicago that evening, stepping into the thick, buzzing energy of the city. Car horns blared, neon lights flickered, and the crisp scent of downtown filled the air. The kids were excited, their energy infectious. I rented a car, loaded them in, and entered the hotel's address into the GPS. As I drove, a feeling I couldn't shake started to creep in. I had planned not to call Emily beforehand, I wanted the surprise to be complete, but now something in me felt uneasy. I dialed her number. No answer. I checked the time. 9:43 p.m. Not terribly late. Maybe she was just tied up with work. Or had gone to bed early. 5 minutes from the hotel, I called again. Straight to voicemail. That nagging feeling turned into a sharp edge, scratching at the back of my mind. Behind me, Jake and Lily were lost in their own world, laughing over some joke. They had no idea that my grip on the steering wheel had tightened. We finally pulled up to the hotel entrance, and for reasons I couldn't explain, my heart was hammering in my chest. I turned to the kids. Wait here in the lobby while I check us in, okay? Lily bounced on her toes. We're gonna surprise her, right? Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. But my voice was tighter than I wanted it to be. At the front desk, I put on my best casual expression. Hey, my wife is staying here, Emily Carter. I wanted to surprise her. Could you tell me her room number? The receptionist smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, sir, but we can't give out guest room numbers. Of course. I slid my credit card over. Could you at least call up and let her know her husband is here? She nodded and dialed the phone. I watched her, waiting. Then something in her expression shifted. Oh, she murmured, eyes flicking toward me. My stomach clenched. She's not answering? She hesitated. No, she's not picking up. A rational part of me tried to find an explanation. Maybe she's asleep. What was the alternative? That she saw the call and ignored it? The receptionist hesitated again before glancing at her screen. It does say she checked in with a +1. A chill ran down my spine. A +1. My own voice sounded foreign, distant. She blinked, seeming to regret saying anything. Yes. The room is under her name, but she listed an additional guest. I just assumed you knew. I stared at her, then let out a short, humorless laugh. What else was there to do? What do you do when you've flown across the country to surprise your wife, only to discover she booked a romantic hotel stay with someone else? The receptionist must have sensed the tension because she suddenly looked uncomfortable. But I wasn't angry, at least, not yet. I was in that strange, heavy silence that comes right before everything implodes. Sir, she asked cautiously. I swallowed hard. Who's the +1? My voice was too steady. Too controlled. She shifted uneasily. I'm sorry, but I can't disclose that information. I let out a slow breath through my nose. Right? Okay. Then I need a room. Her fingers flew over the keyboard, avoiding my gaze. She knew. She knew exactly what kind of situation this was. A minute later, she handed me a room key. Same floor as Emily's. Just a few doors down. Perfect. I walked back to the lobby, plastering on a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. We're all set, I said to the kids. Let's drop our stuff off first. Lily practically skipped beside me. Can we see Mommy right away? Soon, I promised. We rode the elevator up. Jake was still glued to his phone while Lily hummed a cartoon theme song. They had no idea. The room was nice, clean, unremarkable, but I barely noticed. I told the kids to relax, order whatever they wanted from room service. Then I stepped into the hallway. Emily's room was 4 doors down. Each step felt heavy as I walked toward it, my pulse pounding in my ears. What was I about to find? A coworker who had crashed in her room? An innocent explanation? Or something else? I reached the door. Room 814. As I stood before the door, my hand hovered in hesitation for a brief moment before I finally knocked. Silence. No response. I knocked again, harder this time. Still nothing. But I knew she was in there, I could feel it. Pulling out my phone, I quickly sent a message. Me, hey, I'm at your hotel. Open the door. The message was marked as read. Yet no reply. My jaw clenched so tightly it ached. Before I could second-guess myself, I spun around and strode back downstairs with determination. The receptionist's eyebrows lifted in mild surprise at my return. Hey, I said, sliding my key card across the counter, forcing a casual tone. Locked myself out. Can I get a new one? She nodded, fingers moving swiftly over the keyboard. Then, as nonchalantly as possible, I added, oh, and can you add my wife's room to my key? We always do that when she travels. You know, just in case. I smiled, projecting the image of a man whose world wasn't on the verge of collapsing. She hesitated briefly. Then, beep, she swiped my card, typed a few more commands, and handed it back. All set, she said. Thanks. I pocketed the key and headed back upstairs, my steps feeling heavier with each one. By the time I reached Emily's door, my fingers felt numb against the smooth plastic of the keycard. It burned against my palm like a live wire. My pulse wasn't just pounding, it was deafening, roaring in my ears as if my instincts were screaming a final warning. This was it. I exhaled slowly in front of room 814. If I was wrong, I'd look like a fool. But if I was right, I refused to let my mind go there just yet. Sliding the key into the slot, beep. The green light flickered. I gripped the handle and pushed the door open. The first thing that hit me was the scent. A distinct blend of cologne, sweat, and something else, something my brain refused to name just yet. A smell that had no business being in a room where my wife was supposed to be alone. The room was dim, illuminated only by the glow of the bedside lamp. And there, entwined in the pristine white hotel sheets, was Emily. And another man. I didn't even register his face at first. My focus was locked onto her, my wife, the mother of my children, lying there with only a sheet barely concealing her. Her eyes met mine. And for the briefest second, I saw something in them that sent a chill through me. Not guilt. Not shame. Annoyance. Like I was the one causing the problem. Like my presence was an inconvenience. Then, as if snapping back into reality, her expression shifted in an instant. She gasped, scrambling upright, clutching the sheet around her like it could somehow undo what I had just walked in on. Jason, she stammered, her eyes wide. The man beside her stirred, groggy, clearly unaware of the storm about to unfold. I stepped inside, shutting the door behind me. My voice was eerily steady. Who is he? Emily's gaze darted between me and the man as if calculating her next move. And then she had the audacity to say, Jason, this isn't what it looks like. A bitter, humorless laugh escaped me. A sharp, cutting sound that made the man in the bed jolt fully awake. His confusion turned to alarm as the color drained from his face. Good. I turned my attention back to her. Really? My voice remained unsettlingly calm. Because it looks like you're in a hotel bed with another man. She swallowed hard. I can explain. I folded my arms. Then explain. Her lips parted. Then shut. Opened again. And finally she sighed, rubbing her temples as if I was the one giving her a headache. Jason, you're overreacting, she said, her tone suddenly firm. This isn't a big deal. Not a big deal. Something inside me snapped. The man, who now had the sense to start pulling on his pants, cleared his throat. I barely glanced at him. Maybe I should. Sit down. My voice was cold, sharp as a blade. He froze. Emily rolled her eyes. Rolled her eyes. This is so typical, she muttered. You always blow things out of proportion. I stared at her, stunned. Emily, I said slowly, forcing my words out. I flew here. With our kids. To surprise you. Lily and Jake are down the hall, thinking their mom is working hard on a business trip. She flinched. Just for a second. But it was there. Then, just as quickly, her expression hardened again. Jason, you don't understand. No, I said, my voice firm. I think I understand perfectly. A heavy silence settled between us. Then finally, the other man, Ryan, apparently spoke up. "Look, man," he said, lifting his hands defensively. "I had no idea she was married." Emily whipped around. "Ryan, shut up." But the damage was already done. I smiled, slow and cold. "So, Ryan," I drawled, "you thought she was single?" Ryan swallowed hard. "Yeah, I mean she never mentioned a husband. Or kids." Emily's face went pale. I turned back to her, my jaw tightening. "Well, not even a mention of us." Her mouth opened, but before she could say a word, I cut her off. "You know what, Emily?" My voice dropped, quiet but dangerous. "You're right. I don't understand." I stepped closer. "So why don't you enlighten me?" Her lips parted, but she had nothing. No excuses, no explanations. For the first time since I had walked into this room, she looked trapped. Her eyes flickered to Ryan. Then to me. Then to the floor, like she was scrambling to rewrite reality in her favor. I let the silence stretch. I wanted her to feel it. To sit in the mess she had created. And then at last, she spoke. "Jason, please," she whispered. It's not what you think." I let out a quiet, almost dangerous laugh. "Oh? Because from where I'm standing, it sure looks like my wife is having a full-blown affair in a hotel room while I'm at home taking care of our kids." Emily's lips quivered for a brief moment. And then she did something that almost broke me. She softened her voice, tilted her head ever so slightly, and reached out toward me as if I was the one being unreasonable. "Jason, I made a mistake," she said, her fingers barely grazing my wrist. "But it's not what you think." Ryan, clearly uncomfortable, shifted his weight from one foot to the other. Emily, maybe I shoulda." "Shut up, Ryan." Her head snapped toward him so fast even I flinched. I observed her carefully. The way her entire body tensed. The way she clenched her jaw. She wasn't embarrassed. She wasn't remorseful. She was furious that she had been caught. I took a slow step back, shaking my head. "Just tell me the truth, Emily. For once. How long has this been going on?" She hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second. But that moment was enough. Ryan exhaled sharply, raking a hand through his hair. "Oh, man," he muttered under his breath. I scoffed. "That long, huh?" My eyes stayed on Emily, watching every flicker of emotion cross her face. Her control snapped. "Why does it even matter?" she blurted. "Jason, seriously. Why are you making this into some massive betrayal?" A coldness spread through me, deep and suffocating. "Some massive betrayal?" I repeated, my voice hollow. Emily groaned, running a frustrated hand through her hair like I was the one being unreasonable. "Jason, you're a great dad. Okay? A great husband. You work so hard. But I just—" Her voice trailed off and she squeezed her eyes shut as if willing herself not to finish the thought. I took a deliberate step forward. "Say it." She didn't. So I did. "You needed something else." Her face contorted for just a moment. She winced. But she didn't deny it. I inhaled deeply, forcing myself to stay steady. "Emily, our kids are literally down the hall. Lily was so excited to see you she couldn't stop bouncing the entire plane ride. And Jake. Jake actually put his phone down for more than 10 seconds just to come surprise you." She turned away, her voice barely above a whisper. "You weren't supposed to come." My stomach twisted. I let out a short, bitter laugh. "Oh my God." I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. "You were hoping to get away with it. You were just going to come home, kiss our kids goodnight, and crawl into our bed like nothing happened." She flinched. But then, like something dark and unrecognizable had taken over, she lifted her chin and said the single worst thing she could have possibly said. "You should have told me you were coming, Jason." The room tilted. Ryan muttered something under his breath and grabbed his bag. "Yeah, I'm out." He bolted for the door like a rat escaping a sinking ship. I didn't even glance at him. My entire world had just shifted, cracked apart at the foundation. I swallowed hard. "Are you?" My voice broke. I cleared my throat, forcing myself to find the words. "Are you saying this is my fault?" She folded her arms across her chest, her expression unreadable. "I'm saying that if you had told me, this wouldn't have happened." Something inside me snapped. Not in a loud, explosive way. No yelling, no breaking things. No rage. Just a slow, shuddering breath as I forced myself to remain calm. "Emily, this didn't happen because I showed up unexpectedly. This happened because you made a choice." She let out a sharp scoff. "Oh, please. Like you haven't been emotionally checked out for years." That hit me. Hard. I took a step back, narrowing my eyes. "What the hell are you talking about?" She rolled her eyes. Rolled her eyes. "Jason. Don't act like you're some perfect husband," she said, as if we were discussing something as trivial as forgetting to take out the trash. "You barely even look at me anymore. You're always working. Always with the kids? And I. Her breath hitched, frustration laced in every syllable. I just needed to feel like a woman again. I stared at her, waiting. Waiting for regret to settle in. Waiting for her to realize what she had just admitted. But nothing came. She just stood there, her expression unchanging, as if I was supposed to simply accept this. As if I was supposed to understand. And that was when I knew. There was nothing left to save. Something inside me shattered. Not with fury, not with destruction, but with a cold, numbing finality. The kind of break that left you feeling eerily calm. I looked at her, this woman I had built a life with, raised children with, and realized the truth. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She was bored. I exhaled, slow and steady. Like I was grounding myself for a fight I already knew the outcome of. Okay, I said. Emily blinked. Okay, what? Okay, I repeated, tilting my head slightly. I get it now. She shifted, crossing her arms even tighter over her chest. Jason, don't make this dramatic. I ignored her. You're not in love with me anymore. Her lips parted, but no words came. I took a step closer. You haven't been in love with me for a long time. Have you? Her jaw tightened. That's not it. Just answer the question, Emily. She hesitated. And then, with a careless shrug that made my skin crawl, she said, I don't know. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because what else was there to do? Wow. I ran a hand down my face. You don't know. Her irritation returned like I was dragging this out longer than necessary. Jason, I didn't plan for this to happen, she said, as if that somehow made it better. It was comforting to feel desired, even if for the wrong reasons. I gazed at her, searching her face. You think I don't want you? She rolled her eyes, the response coming without hesitation. Not in the same way. Not like before. You mean not like a stranger in a hotel room? My voice was sharp, slicing through the tension between us. She winced, the words hitting their mark. That's not fair, she whispered. A bitter laugh escaped me. Fair? My voice rose, filling the room. Oh, I'm sorry, Emily. Is this unfair to you? Is this difficult for you? She had the audacity to avert her gaze as if she were the one burdened. You want to feel like a woman again? I scoffed, shaking my head. Try feeling like a husband who just discovered his wife has been sneaking off to hotel rooms with random men while their kids wait at home, wondering why she doesn't look at them the way she used to. Emily exhaled slowly, pressing her fingers to her temples as if my words were nothing more than a nuisance, a headache she couldn't wait to get rid of. And in that moment, I understood. She wasn't hearing me. She wasn't absorbing a single thing I was saying. She was simply waiting for me to be done talking. I studied her, truly looked at her. The woman who used to cry during sad movies, who would tuck little notes into my lunchbox before work, who would laugh so hard she could barely breathe when Jake told one of his ridiculous jokes at the dinner table. That woman wasn't here anymore. Or maybe she was, but I just wasn't worth that version of her anymore. Either way, I was finished. Turning toward the door, I saw her stiffen. Where are you going? She asked, her voice tight. I hesitated only a second before glancing back. To our kids. The ones you seemed to forget about while you were busy, feeling like a woman again. Her expression twisted into something unreadable, something bitter. Don't be dramatic, Jason. A low chuckle rumbled in my chest. You haven't seen dramatic yet. And with that I walked out, leaving her standing in the wreckage of everything she had shattered. I moved through the hotel hallway, my legs feeling foreign, disconnected from my body. Every step was weighted, like bricks had been strapped to my shoulders, dragging me down. My mind, however, was screaming at me to keep going. Because just down the hall, in room 810, my kids were waiting. Lily was probably sprawled out on the bed, giggling at some cartoon, still buzzing with excitement over the surprise we had planned. Jake was likely halfway through a burger he ordered from room service, already texting his friends about how Chicago was kinda sick, actually. They had no idea. No idea that their mother had just torn our family apart in a dimly lit hotel room with a man named Ryan. No idea that the father about to walk through their door wasn't the same man who had left it earlier. I stopped in front of our room. 814 to 810. Just 4 doors apart. 4 doors down, their mother was probably still sitting on that bed, running her hands through her hair, not guilty, not devastated, just annoyed. My jaw clenched so hard I felt it in my temples. Then finally I swiped the keycard. Beep. Green light. The door clicked open, and before I could fully step inside, Lily came flying at me. Daddy, did you see her? She squealed, wrapping her small arms around my waist. Was she so happy? Did she cry? The lump in my throat was unbearable. I forced a smile, swallowing the bitterness that threatened to rise. Not yet, baby, I murmured, running a hand through her soft curls. She was busy. We'll see her in the morning, okay? Her little face scrunched in confusion, but she trusted me. She always trusted me. So she just nodded, letting it go. Jake was lounging on his bed, one arm tucked behind his head, half watching the TV. So, what's the plan? He asked, tossing a fry into his mouth. My mind went blank. A plan? There was no plan anymore. What was supposed to be a fun family trip had turned into something else entirely. And now I was standing here, pretending everything was fine while their mother was 4 doors away, likely scrambling for excuses. I needed to get them out of here. You guys want to do something fun? I asked suddenly, forcing my voice to sound like normal. I don't know, grab some ice cream? Walk around the city a little before bed. Lily gasped like I had just told her she won the lottery. Yes. Jake arched a brow but shrugged. Yeah, sure. Why not? Cool. I grabbed my wallet, shoving it into my jacket. Let's go then. Lily hurried to put on her shoes, bouncing with excitement. Jake pocketed his phone, and I took one last look around the hotel room, the room I had thought was just part of a simple family getaway an hour ago. Then I stepped out, making sure to leave everything behind. Because we weren't coming back. The night air hit me like a jolt to the system, cool, sharp, real? I needed that because nothing else felt real anymore. Lily gripped my hand, swinging our arms as we walked down the bustling Chicago sidewalk. Jake stuffed his hands into the pocket of his hoodie, earbuds dangling around his neck, glancing around like he was actually enjoying this. And me? I was just trying to breathe. Trying to ignore the weight of my phone in my pocket, knowing a call or text from her was inevitable. Trying to suppress the burning rage sitting in my stomach like hot coals. Trying to act normal. Because they couldn't know. Not yet. Can I get 2 scoops? Lily asked, practically skipping beside me. I forced a smile, pushing everything else aside for her. You can get 3. Her whole face lit up. Best night ever. Jake snorted. Dad's in a good mood. We had to act quickly before he realized we were out past bedtime. They had no idea what was happening. As we wandered the streets, we stumbled upon a small ice cream shop, its neon lights casting a warm glow against the darkened sidewalks. The scent of freshly made waffle cones and sugar filled the air, stirring something deep in me, memories of simpler times when unexpected outings meant joy, not chaos. We placed our orders. Lily chose rainbow sprinkles, while Jake went for chocolate fudge. As for me, I picked something at random. I wasn't even paying attention. It wasn't about the ice cream, I just needed to keep moving, to keep this night from unraveling into something I wasn't ready to face. We found a table near the window, and for a brief moment, things almost felt normal. Lily chatted about school, Jake teased her about how she still colored outside the lines, and I played my part. I nodded, laughed when I was supposed to, and took bites of my dessert that tasted like nothing. Then my phone buzzed. Even before checking, I knew who it was. A knot tightened in my stomach as I pulled it from my pocket. One new message. Emily. Jason. Where are you? I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over it. Then, without hesitation, I turned the phone off and slid it back into my pocket. She didn't have the right to ask that. Not after what she had done. Hey, Dad. Jake's voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back to the present. I looked up. Yeah? His gaze was sharp, too observant for his own good. You okay? I hesitated for a second, then forced a smile, this time a genuine one. Yeah, buddy, I said, glancing between him and Lily. I'm perfect. And for the first time that night, I actually meant it. Because in that moment, I wasn't thinking about her. I was thinking about us, me and my kids, and how I was going to get them far away from her. By the time we returned to the hotel, my decision was made. We weren't staying. I didn't care that our bags were still in the room or that we had booked the trip for 2 more nights. None of it mattered. The only thing that did was getting my kids out of this situation before it could reach them. As we stepped into the elevator, I kept my voice casual. All right, guys. Change of plans. We're heading home tonight. Lily gasped. What? But we just got here. Jake frowned. Why? What about Mom? I exhaled slowly, choosing my words carefully. Something came up. Jake's expression darkened. He wasn't naive, he knew something was off. But Lily was still too young to catch the tension in my voice, and I intended to keep it that way. But, Daddy, she whined, her lower lip trembling. We didn't even get to surprise her yet. A lump formed in my throat, but I swallowed it down. I know, baby. But we'll see her when we get home, okay? The elevator dinged. Our floor. We stepped out and made our way down the hallway. Just keep moving. Keep them distracted. Then we turned the corner. And she was there. Emily stood outside our room, arms crossed, waiting. Lily's face lit up. Mommy. She ran toward her. But I caught her by the shoulders just in time. Go inside, Lil, I said firmly. Jake, take her. Jake hesitated, his gaze flickering between me and Emily. He sensed something was wrong. But after a moment he gave a small nod. Come on, Lil. Button. Now. I kept my eyes locked on Emily. Lily pouted but obeyed, following Jake inside. The door shut behind them. Now it was just us. Emily let out a sharp breath. What the hell, Jason? I didn't respond. I just watched her. She looked disheveled, her hair messy, her eyes sharp and restless. Like she had been pacing ever since I left her alone in that room with him. Good. She scoffed. Oh, so now you're not talking? That's mature. My jaw clenched. What do you want, Emily? She threw up her hands. I want to talk. You just stormed out like a madman, took our kids, and disappeared. Do you have any idea how that looks? A bitter laugh escaped me. Oh, does it look bad for you, Emily? Does it make you seem like a terrible wife and mother? Because guess what? You are. Her face twisted. Jason, lower your voice? Or what? I stepped closer, towering over her. You don't get to tell me what to do anymore. For the first time, fear flickered in her eyes. Not fear of me hurting her, I'd never do that, but of what was coming next. Because I wasn't just angry anymore. I was done. Jason. She softened her tone. Please. Let's go inside and talk. I shook my head. There's nothing to talk about. Yes, there is. Her voice wavered. This is our family, Jason. Silence stretched between us. I let her sit in it, let her feel the weight of what she had done. Then finally I spoke the words that would shatter her. You should have thought about that before you climbed into bed with another man. Her face crumbled. For the first time all night, she looked like she actually felt it, like she finally understood what she had destroyed. But it was too late. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the room key, and unlocked the door. Before stepping inside, I turned back to her one last time. I'll be filing for divorce when we get home. Then, without another word, I shut the door in her face. The moment it clicked shut, a deep breath escaped me, one I hadn't even realized I was holding. My hands trembled, my jaw ached from clenching so hard. But my mind? Clear. This was real. I was done. And there was no going back. Who was that? Lily's small legs swung back and forth as she sat on the edge of the bed, her curious eyes watching me. I turned toward her, forcing a reassuring smile. Just someone from the hotel, sweetheart, I said. Jake, however, wasn't convinced. Leaning against the headboard with his arms crossed, he studied me intently. Was it Mom? He asked, his voice flat. I hesitated. It was easy to tell Lily a small lie, she was too young to grasp what was happening, but Jake? He saw everything too clearly. With a deep sigh, I ran a hand down my face and finally admitted, yeah. His expression didn't change. You guys fought. It wasn't a question. I let out a slow breath. We just talked, I corrected, though we both knew better. He held my gaze for a long moment, then asked, his voice quieter this time, are you and Mom getting divorced? The question hit me like a blow to the ribs. Lily stilled, her wide, innocent eyes darting between us. Wait, what? She whispered, alarm creeping into her voice. Damn it, Jake. I crouched in front of them, choosing my words carefully. Listen, I said gently. Mom and I are working through some things, but no matter what happens, we both love you. That will never change. Tears welled up in Lily's eyes. But I don't want you to break up, she choked out. My heart cracked. Pulling her into my arms, I hugged her tightly. Oh, baby girl, I murmured, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. It's going to be okay. I promise. Over her shoulder, I met Jake's gaze. He wasn't crying. He wasn't yelling. He just looked exhausted. And in that moment I knew. He understood. He had already figured out the truth. He just wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. Lily sniffled, her small hands gripping my shirt. Can we go home now? I swallowed hard, forcing back the lump in my throat. Yeah, baby. We're going home. Jake gave a small nod. Good. And just like that, the decision was made. We were leaving. I grabbed my phone and booked the earliest flight out. One way. No return. Because we weren't coming back. Not to this hotel. Not to this city. Not to her. By the time we arrived at the airport, a cold, heavy weight had settled deep in my chest. It wasn't crushing, it was steady. The finality of it all had set in. No more pretending. No more forcing something broken to look whole. No more waiting for Emily to walk through the door only to feel like a stranger in my own marriage. The only thing that mattered now was getting them out. Lily dozed against my side as we sat at the gate. Her small fingers curled around my sleeve as if she were afraid I might disappear. Jake sat beside me, hood pulled up, scrolling through his phone. But I knew he wasn't really looking at anything. He was processing, thinking. I didn't check my phone. Not once. I knew Emily was texting, calling, probably spiraling. But she wasn't my concern anymore. Do you think Mom will come home after us? Lily murmured, her voice thick with sleep. I forced myself to relax. I don't know, baby. She yawned, rubbing at her tired eyes. I hope she does. I didn't respond because I couldn't lie to her. Jake, on the other hand, let out a quiet snort. She won't. I shot him a warning look, but he simply shook his head. She didn't care that we were here, Dad. She didn't even ask to see us, he said, his voice calm but edged with something sharp. She only wanted to talk to you. That says enough. I winced, because he was right. Emily hadn't fought to see them. She hadn't called, hadn't begged to hold Lily one last time, to apologize to Jake, to explain. All she had cared about was controlling the situation, and when she couldn't, she let us walk away without a single goodbye. Lily blinked up at me, confusion clouding her sleepy eyes. Mommy still loves us, though, right? My throat tightened. Of course she does, I murmured, pressing a kiss to her forehead. She always will. Maybe that was true. Maybe Emily did love them in her own way. But love wasn't enough. If it had been, we wouldn't be sitting here waiting for a flight back home without her. A voice crackled over the intercom, announcing the boarding of our flight. Come on, I said, standing up and grabbing Lily's small backpack. Let's go home. Jake didn't say anything, just nodded. And as we walked toward that plane, something inside me felt lighter. Because for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't just leaving Emily behind. I was taking my life back. The flight was quiet. Lily curled up against me, her tiny body rising and falling with each deep, innocent breath. Jake sat beside the window, earbuds in, staring out at the endless stretch of dark sky. But I knew he wasn't listening to anything, just lost in thought. And me? I sat still, staring at the seat in front of me, replaying the last 24 hours like a film I never wanted to watch again. Emily's face twisting in frustration when I confronted her. The way she turned it back on me, making me feel like I was the problem. How easily she let us walk away, never once stopping to say goodbye to her own children. I clenched my fists, then forced them to relax. None of it mattered anymore. We were going home, but home wasn't home anymore. When we landed, the sky was still a muted gray, the quiet morning pressing down on us as I loaded the kids into the car. The drive back felt empty, hollow, as if the world itself knew something had cracked beyond repair. As we pulled into the driveway, Lily stretched, letting out a small, sleepy yawn. Mom's still at the hotel, right? Jake's eyes flicked to me in the rearview mirror, waiting for a response. I inhaled slowly. Yeah, baby. Lily nodded, satisfied. Okay, I'm gonna make her a card for when she gets home. Jake turned his gaze back to the road, saying nothing. When we arrived home, I unlocked the front door, and the moment we stepped inside, the silence hit me like a crashing wave. The air felt unnaturally still, as if the house itself knew Emily wasn't coming back. Lily kicked off her shoes and dashed toward the living room, already digging through her crayons. Jake entered more hesitantly, his eyes sweeping the space like it was unfamiliar. I dropped my bag near the door and let out a long breath. Without thinking, my gaze drifted toward the kitchen counter. Emily's coffee mug still sat there, untouched since the morning she left. Cold, abandoned. A quiet reminder of the life we had before everything unraveled. Jake must have followed my line of sight because he scoffed under his breath. Well, at least you don't have to make her coffee anymore. A lump formed in my throat. Jake? It's fine, he muttered, cutting me off as he headed for the stairs. I'm just going to my room. I let him go. What could I say? That it wasn't fine? That I wish things had played out differently? That despite everything, I wished Emily had just been a better liar? Closing my eyes for a moment, I ran a hand over my face and sighed. Then I turned toward Lily, who was already scribbling furiously on a sheet of paper. Daddy, how do you spell love? My chest tightened. I crouched beside her, gently brushing a curl from her face. Love, baby? She grinned and carefully wrote each letter, her small hands forming big, uneven strokes. Love. Then underneath, she added, MOM. I had to turn away. I couldn't face it, not now. Not when my daughter still believed her mother was coming home. Not when I didn't know how to tell her the truth. Not when I wasn't even sure what home meant anymore. The house was suffocatingly quiet. Upstairs, Jake's bedroom door was closed. He was probably texting his friends, venting about how his family had shattered overnight. Meanwhile, Lily remained at the kitchen table, her tongue peeking out in concentration as she colored in a heart beside the word Mom. And me? I just stood there, staring at my daughter's delicate handwriting, wondering how I was supposed to explain that her mother had left long before I caught her in that hotel room. I pulled out my phone. No new messages. Emily had stopped trying. No texts. No calls. Not even a half-hearted excuse. And for some reason, that hit harder than anything else. I had spent years choosing her, choosing our marriage, choosing our family. And the moment she realized there was no way to talk her way out of this, she stopped choosing us altogether. Daddy? Lily's soft voice pulled me back to the present. I looked down at her, her big, trusting eyes searching mine. When's Mommy coming home? It felt like my chest was caving in. How do you tell a 6-year-old the truth? How do you explain that the person who tucked her in at night, kissed her scraped knees, and promised to always be there, wasn't coming back? You don't. Not like that. I crouched beside her again, smoothing a hand over her hair. Mommy's going to be away for a while, baby. She frowned. Why? I swallowed, my throat dry. Because sometimes grown-ups don't get things right. And when they make mistakes, they have to take time to figure things out. She absorbed my words, her little fingers tracing the heart she had drawn. But she still loves me, right? My breath hitched. I forced a small smile. She'll always love you. It wasn't the full truth, but it was the truth she needed. The truth she could hold onto until she was old enough to understand the rest. She beamed. Okay. Then I'll save this for her when she gets back. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Because she didn't know. She didn't know that the card she just made would sit on the counter for days. Weeks. Months. She didn't know that each morning, she would wake up and race downstairs, expecting to see her mom sitting at the table, sipping coffee. She didn't know that, eventually, she'd stop asking. That one day, she'd forget she ever made this card at all. And that was what shattered me the most. Because no matter how much I resented Emily for what she had done, I hated even more that she could still break our daughter's heart without even being here.